Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here today. Appreciate you taking a few moments. If you will, like, share, comment on the post, and then you can join me, if you will, in Genesis chapter 25, beginning in verse 29. One of the most curious stories, I think, in the Bible. Once when Jacob was cooking stew, Esau came in from the field, and he was exhausted. Esau said to Jacob, "Let me eat some of that red stew, for I am exhausted." Therefore his name was called Edom. Jacob said, "Sell me your birthright now." Esau said, "I'm about to die. Of what use is a birthright to me?" Jacob said, "Swear to me now." So he swore to him and sold his birthright to Jacob. Then Jacob gave Esau bread and lentil stew, and he ate and drank and rose and went his way. Thus Esau despised his birthright. We see some flaws in both of these young men's character. Esau, obviously, is pretty clear what happened. He comes in, he's tired, he's hungry. Jacob's cooking, and Esau makes what I guess you could say was one of the most foolish trades in the history of mankind. He traded his entire inheritance for a silly bowl of stew. And again, we see character flaws in both. Jacob taking advantage of Esau's hunger, proposing this preposterous trade. Esau allowing his earthly, fleshly desires to outweigh good common sense, and goes through with it. And so Esau swears he will go about it. We learn from this point on, we see that we learn Jacob is a pretty deceptive fellow. You don't want to go into business with Jacob. Esau, on the other hand, Esau is very short-sighted. He is impulsive when faced with the decision of, and he was entitled to a double inheritance, being the older. He says, I'm about to die. Well, he wasn't about to die. You and I both know that. It takes longer than one hunting trip to starve to death. And so he settles for something that will, something temporary. If he gets this bowl of soup, he's going to be hungry again in a little bit. He settles for something that will bring him temporary satisfaction instead of something of way more value. There's a great lesson there, man. How many times have we all been caught in this snare of being impulsive, of saying something impulsive, of doing something impulsive, of going for the immediate reward, and settling instead of waiting on God. And to the point where it says Esau despised his birthright. He considered his birthright to be less than a meal, less than a bowl of soup, of stew. I don't know what that stew was made of. It was bear stew, beef. I don't know what that was, but that was an expensive bowl of soup. And Jacob deceives him. Jacob takes advantage of this situation, and Esau is the portrait, if you will, of James Montgomery Boyce writes when he talks about this, of the eat, drink, and be merry crowd. I'll do it later. How many people today are living their life wildly and in abandon and thinking, well, I'm not worried about it right now. I'll get right with God down the road. I'll get saved one day. It's dangerous way to live. That we don't consider and think through the consequences of our decision. We see numerous stories in Scripture that way. Whether you're talking about Eve in the garden, whether you're talking about Jonah not going to Nineveh, whether you're talking about Peter getting out of the boat, taking his eyes off of Jesus, whether you're talking about Judas selling, betraying Jesus for 30 pieces of silver. I mean, we could go on and on and on looking at people who made foolish decisions, not only in Scripture, but in everyday life. We can look in the mirror and see someone who has made foolish decisions without thinking about the consequences. We need to take some time. There's an old saying that I like. It says, and I'm not telling you I got this mastered, but there's an old saying that says before we talk to God, to man about anything, we should talk to God about everything. Let's think about our decisions. Let's not be impulsive. Let's seek and do the will of God in all our ways. You think about it. Have a great day. We'll see you here tomorrow morning.